This is the Defender Radio News Brief. I'm Michael Howie, and this is Defender Radio, the podcast for wildlife advocates and animal lovers. This news brief is brought to you by the Defender Radio Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can support the show to help reduce costs to the fur bearers, keep us online, and, if we get enough support, develop transcripts of episodes. Learn more at patreon.com/defenderradio. Bears. In British Columbia, they're starting to wander about, and across the rest of the country, they're waiting out the final days of winter before venturing into the world. Apologies, by the way. During this interview last week, I mentioned that all the snow had melted in Hamilton, and then we were promptly hit by a horrible ice storm for a couple of days. So we'll just not blame me for that. The best person to talk to about bears is a man who spends his time rehabilitating them, teaching others to coexist with them, and kind of looking like one when his hair gets a little more scruffy. Mike McIntosh of Bear With Us. We connected and talked spring bear adventures, attractants and the feeding of bears, and why rehabilitation of bears anywhere in Canada can be successful. This is a brief edit of our interview. The full version will be available later this week at thefurbears.com, in the iTunes Store, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Now, I don't know a whole lot about bears, but I often hear that they're ravishly hungry when they first wander out of the den after winter.
When bears first come out of the den, they are not ravishly hungry like often is shared or read or talked about on the radio. That's totally not true. It takes them a while to build up that hunger and need for feed just because they're wandering around with nothing to eat and using up energy. So that doesn't mean they won't take advantage of a nice food source like sunflower seeds and a bird feeder.
Whether it's alongside a highway in Alberta's beautiful parks, backyards of northern Ontario, or the forests of British Columbia, we often hear of people feeding bears. Is it really that bad if we give them an apple now and then?
The general public shouldn't feed them. And the reason I say that is because if I like bears and I want to see them around, and if I give it an apple, if I do it often enough, that bear will associate the presence of a human being with maybe getting another apple. The problem is it may go out to somebody else hoping it'll get something to eat, and that somebody else may shoot it and kill it. So it should not be fed under any circumstances. They're quite capable of finding their own food sources. They're an omnivore. They eat many different types of food. And because of that, they eat grass and leaves and anything else in between. So they do not need to be fed by people. And unfortunately, when they are, they eventually end up dead.
Black bears are rehabbed in BC and Ontario, but some jurisdictions are saying they shouldn't be. What leads to successful rehabilitation for bears?
Well, okay, so one thing that works in the favor is the animal itself. And largely it's because it's an omnivore. There's many food sources that will keep a bear happily content and nutritionally satisfied. So they're intelligent animals, very intelligent. They're intelligent rivals out of the great apes. And because they're intelligent and remember and are inquisitive, they taste everything, they will survive well in the wild because there's food almost everywhere they walk. The primary concern about rehabilitating bears is to not get them used to people in general, like conditioned to human activity. So a lot of people, a lot of voices, commotion, strange people that come around, that can cause these bears to become kind of complacent. And that doesn't risk people in the future, it risks the bear's life. So that's why at Bear With Us, we don't have visitors of any kind. And only one maybe other volunteer other than myself. So the bears see very few different people. They don't get conditioned to human activity, vehicles, music, that kind of thing. They don't hear any of that. And there's 3 rehab centers in BC, as you mentioned. There's one that just opened up in Manitoba, which formerly hasn't been rehabilitating bears, and it's going to happen in Alberta soon, as far as we know. And there's a rehab center in Quebec, and one in New Brunswick, and that's about it.
Learn more about living with bears at bearwithus.org. You'll also hear more from Mike McIntosh later this week by subscribing to the show on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Until next time, this is Michael Howie for Defender Radio, reminding you to stay informed and stay strong.